Yeah, the MIT report, which said that 95% of Gen AI projects fail, is trash. There is a Gen AI divide in terms of which companies are adopting AI products and which companies are not yet adopting AI products. What happens in enterprise is that the projects could be, $50,000 projects, $500,000 projects, $5 million projects, $50 million projects, right? So we might see a lot of failures, and then we might see a bunch of $500 million projects succeeding. You're not going to regulate electricity, so it's at a very base level. You don't want to regulate things. You want to regulate applications of things, but those applications are themselves moving very fast. Yeah, the MIT report, which said that 95% of Gen AI projects fail, is trash. They spoke to a bunch of people. Those people's designations are not clear. They spoke to people who are across the organization, not necessarily decision makers or people who had the budgets. And so that data in that report is very, very sketchy. And they have not really released anything beyond that. Somebody saying just for, to make noise that 95% of Gen AI projects fail, I think that's just like trying to get it's just clickbait, but it's coming from some affiliate or somebody in MI. So I don't believe that report at all. There is a Gen AI divide in terms of which companies are adopting AI products and which companies are not yet adopting AI products. There is a divide in how individuals are adopting AI products, especially professionals who are able to use these AI products for their improving their workflow and their productivity, and people who are not yet using Gen AI to improve their productivity. Right? So that divide is real. Is it a fact that only 5% of Gen AI projects in enterprise succeeding? I think that's like wildly missing the mark in terms of where things are really at. So I think going for a percentage doesn't make sense, because what happens in enterprise is that the projects could be $50,000 projects, $500,000 projects, $5 million projects, $50 million projects, right? So we might see a lot of failures, and then we might see a bunch of $500 million projects succeeding. So I think putting a percentage to it is not super helpful. I think what is happening is that in enterprise, normally sales cycles and pilot cycles, POC cycles, are actually anywhere between 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, and normally that's with a stable technology. So where the seller knows what they are selling, what is being built, right, and that is stable. And then I'm trying to sell it to you, and you know what to expect. Therefore, in that period of our engagement of 3 months or 6 months, 12 months, we're normally figuring out, hey, what is it you really want? And then we're serving that. And that's how any enterprise pilot process goes through. And enterprise pilots are not always successful, right? Maybe 30% of enterprise pilots fail even in the software era, or even maybe even 50% of pilots fail, right? So that's a normal thing. Now, what's happened is people are trying AI pilots, and the AI pilot, whatever I'm building to give it to you, that capability itself is changing in the time that we are engaged. And people don't know how to buy AI. So they are trying to figure out, how do I buy AI? So they are also not clear on what should be a yes or a no condition for us to buy that AI. Right? So these are a couple of things which are making AI pilots much more tricky to do than the older software kind of pilots. Right? And this is not because necessarily Gen AI is working or not working. This is because, let's say, I decided to buy and implement Gen AI software, and then in the process of doing that, I realized, hey, my data is not good. Actually, what I want is different. The AI can do this. This is more valuable for me, so let me go ahead and do that. Oh, actually, the AI can do this, but this is not something that I can implement right now. A lot of these kind of things are being figured out, because buyers are also not used to buying AI or Gen AI kind of products before, right? So that is the kind of a situation. There is a difference though, and the difference is that when people are building in-house, they at least have access to all the data to a large degree. They can be more nimble. They can make more changes and do stuff. But on the flip side, will they be able to build products that actually capture more surface area, products that actually capture best practices from outside? All of that remains to be seen. And of course, only the very largest enterprises might be able to build AI internally for themselves. Smaller and mid-market enterprises, small enterprises, or enterprises that don't have tech teams, they may not be able to do that for themselves. Yeah, so I think AI wrapper again is a wrong, concept. People think that You just put a small amount of code on top of something, and that's a wrapper, and how can it sustain and things like that, right? I think that's a very bad way to look at it, especially from an enterprise context. That may be true from a consumer context and so on, where maybe ChatGPT does something and it's now a feature, not a product. But in the enterprise context, that's not the case. There may be simple things which are not very difficult to do, but which have to be done in the context of that business and which have to be done in the context of that workflow, which is tricky to do because it is across organizational boundaries. It is across different teams that are trying to work together. It is across different data silos, right? And when this happens, somebody who is trying to figure out, hey, okay, what data should I bring in? What are the ways to measure this? How do I make sure that this is working? How do I evaluate whether it's working? And then how do I plug in the outcomes and the whole workflow into a particular company's existing workflow? All of these things have a lot of detailed work. And so that detailed work is not necessarily incredibly technologically challenging, but that detailed work has to be done for it to work in an enterprise. And that's where somebody saying, hey, this is just a thin wrapper, actually loses the point, right? They don't get that all of these details are required to make it work in an enterprise context. And for an enterprise to be able to adopt it needs to be specialized. Yeah. And that is the same challenge why enterprise projects take a long time. Because to figure out what are those details, what level of details are required, that takes time. Because that data is not, that information is not in one person's head. It is there in many people's head. Yeah, so I think that's not a this thing. It's not reached that level yet. Right? I think the level where it's reached is more that enterprises are trying to figure out how to get people to adopt it, try to figure out how to adopt it, and it's not really at the employees who are not adopting it, but at the workflow level, at the use case level. Is it correct? Is it good enough? Can I adopt a smaller thing, try it out? It's kind of where it is. On the other hand, what employees or individuals are doing is that they're adopting tools, they're adopting things that help them with their personal productivity. And so that obviously you will use a ChatGPT or a Claude or a Gemini or whatever else. You will adopt that to make your work better, faster, easier, cheaper, quicker. Because if I can do my work faster, then obviously like I can save that time and do something better. Or, right? So that a lot of people are doing, right? And even the MIT study or some other study showed that a lot of employees are adopting these AI tools by themselves. Sometimes paying for it themselves. Sometimes the company pays for it, whatever. But they are adopting AI tools. So it's not that AI tools are not being adopted; they're being adopted by individuals for their own productivity, and enterprises figuring out how do I get it to be used across the organization. But there are a lot of details there, a lot of nuance there, in order for us to be able to adopt it. Yeah, it is going to take time, right? Enterprise is not going to be able to adopt AI easily because it is a very, very big shift from a mindset perspective of how they operate. And a classic way to think about that is that work of serving a customer by doing something, right? That whole thing of, I do something, create a product or a service, I find customers, I deliver it to customers. And this is a whole stream of work. Now, if we want to scale that, we build a company that scales that whole thing, then we can't get a single person who can do that end to end. Create the product, get customers, sell it to them, make it work for them, all of that. Okay. So instead, what we do is we slice this up into pieces which a human can specialize at. Right? And now this becomes a flow rather than just one thing that went from here. It becomes a flow where this flow is interrupted by many, many people. Right? Many people are doing parts of this flow and they become extremely specialized at it, really good at it. And that's how you scale the whole thing. Right? Now, when you chop it up though, these segments become part of different organizations. They become part of a marketing organization, or sales organization, or an engineering organization, or a production organization, or a delivery organization, and so on and so forth. Right? And now the same customer's experience is broken into all these sites. Right? Now, the other side of the challenge is that the same customer's data is broken up into all these silos. Right? And so what the customer wants is now recorded in bits and pieces across these things and across time as well. Now, when you look at AI is a general purpose tool. Now, as a general purpose tool, it does really well when it has all the information that is required. So now to serve this customer, if it has all the information about what this customer wants, then it can do a really good job of potentially serving this customer. But instead, what do we have inside the enterprise? I have a little bit of data here, 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 little bit of data from now, little bit of data from 6 months ago, little bit of data from 12 months ago. And all of these are in different systems, but they're all about the same customer's needs. Now, when this happens, then the AI is not able to really work very well. So now, if somebody really wants to make Gen AI work really well for them, they have to figure out from first principles, say, how am I serving the customer? Why I might have broken it up into these slices in the past so that humans could specialize. But now, to do the same outcome, how should I engineer my organization with AI doing some parts of the delivery so that it has access to the entire information of what the customer wants so that it's able to do a much, much better job. Right. So the organizations that are able to reimagine and bring AI to the table to deliver stuff while the AI has enough information are the folks who are going to be able to make that transition faster. The folks who stay in these silos and try to get AI to just do parts of these silos a little bit at a time, those folks are going to be on a different path. And we have to see whether this path is better or this path is better. But my bet would be on the path where the entire flow is reimagined, where humans are in the loop, but AI has the information that's required to serve the customer end to end. So it's a complicated question, right? In terms of is AI taking away jobs? At least in the short term, what is happening is that a mid-level person with AI can be quite productive and may feel more productive than if they had hired some junior people. Because the junior people, you're going to have to train them in your context, your business context. They don't understand many of the technical things as well. So you're going to have to ramp them up on the technical things as well. And then they're going to have to, figure out how to do and what to do and lot of things before they can become productive members of the team. So what people are figuring out is that mid-level or senior people, when they have access to AI, they're able to be much more productive and get much more work done, or it feels like they get much more work done than they did. They are ready to pay for and use AI well. And what happens is at the mid or senior levels, in terms of technical capability, they will be able to specify the architecture. They will be able to do a lot of things which will result in the product being better. So, especially in a coding kind of a thing, what's happening is that people feel that rather than training somebody junior on first the domain, then the technical aspects, then having to police them and see what they do and things like that, it's easier to have an army of coding agents doing what you want to get the outcome that you want. But junior folks may or may not be able to do this, but senior folks will be able to do and are able to do this. So a lot of junior developer hiring might have gone down as a result of this, because I've heard folks say that, hey, we will hire one senior person rather than 2-3 junior people, because senior person with AI is more efficient and effective than multiple junior people. So the market shifts in some sense. I think that a similar thing will be happening across many spaces. So where a senior lawyer may have used a junior lawyer, intern, or somebody to create a first draft, kind of put things together, and so on. Now, the senior lawyer will have to give instructions for 5 or 10 minutes for this. Now, that same 5-10 minutes, if they give that instruction to AI, it might be able to produce an output much faster. And when it does that, I'm able to iterate and complete that much faster. Otherwise, what happens? I'm a senior lawyer, and I give 15 minutes of instruction. The junior will come back after 4 hours or 6 hours. And by the time my context is lost, so I have to get back into the context, then spend another 5-10 minutes, 15 minutes, give some feedback. And that cycle might continue 2-3 times. Now, with AI, I might do that same iteration, or maybe even a little more iteration. But that amount of iteration might complete in 1 hour. And so my work product is ready in 1 hour compared to 2 days. And so I didn't have to get out of that context. And now I can send that off and move on to my next task. So these kind of things are happening across many different industries. Right? And of course, a smart junior employee could use this AI to come up with a much better first draft and also think of things that the senior person has not thought of, right? And come with choices, saying, hey, you know what, I put this together. These are some open questions. Can you help me with these open questions? In each case, this is the language we would use, or this is how we would do it. And so, can we do that? But that means that the person has to have that agency to do that, to ask the right questions and to push it further than they would have done before. And of course, then the quality level can be much higher overall. So, we don't yet know where things are falling. But I think one is during the COVID time and just thereafter, a lot of companies had overhyped. They hired way too many people and too fast. So many of them were overstaffed and have been cutting that over the last few years. That is one factor. And the second factor is a lot of mid-senior folks are using AI to become much more productive. And so they are not hiring very junior folk as much as they used to because they feel, hey, I can get more done by myself. But this is temporary, right? We don't know how it's going to shape up in the longer term. Because historically, always happens that as we start using a technology and as we get more productivity, we find ways to use that productivity to do more. And so, same thing might happen. Yeah. So, I think, again, this is a tricky question because on the one side, you want the AI to be creative. That's the reason why you are using it. And the other side of the coin is hallucination. Both are not independent of each other. So just using the AI alone is not a good idea in most use cases. And that's why the wrapper companies or the vertical AI companies will break up the question or the problem statement into different pieces and then stitch these pieces together, verify each piece, verify the critical pieces, and so on, and then get an answer which is validated. So that is a much better process to do in most cases. Now, the hallucination rate obviously cannot be very high, but then the hallucination rate depends on what question you ask it. So, in a context of a legal contract, if I ask it, hey, in this contract, is this clause there or not there? Today, AI is going to give you the right answer almost every time. It's very, very rare, unlikely that in that context it's going to give you the wrong answer completely. Now, then let's say you start getting to trickier questions. Hey, how does this clause affect this clause? That question, you're asking it to be creative. Now, when you ask it to be creative, then you're starting to enter into more dangerous territory. It may imagine some things that are not there. But then, when you're asking it that kind of a creative question, that kind of a question which requires a creative answer, perhaps there is a human who's going to be looking at it as to add context if required or to verify or validate or change the question. One of the things which almost everybody does with AI is you ask it a question and then gives you an answer and then you can see how it is thinking. Then you realize that, hey, I asked the wrong question because I didn't frame the question well enough. So you go back and then reframe the question in a way that is better for the AI to understand and give you a better answer. So that also will be happening. So I don't think it's a question of us going from an AI which is hallucinating a little bit to an AI which is not hallucinating at all. I think we'll be in a place for a while where we will expect that depending on the type of question, you will scaffold it, you will build a superstructure which will get the kind of answer that you want. If you want a very precise answer, that scaffolding will do something else. If you want a very creative answer, that scaffolding will do something else. And figuring out how to do all of these things for that particular domain is something that is a lot of work. And that's where a lot of businesses are going to be built, which will make a ton of money helping other folks, the end users, become much more productive, become much more effective. Learning how to prompt better is important. There are tools being built now. For example, one of them is called DSPY. And what they do is they actually help you optimize the whole thing. Okay, what evaluations do you, what prompts are you going to use, what data do you, all of that put together for getting the entire structure of how to do it. And it will create some very, very complex prompts potentially for use. And also when the models change, when your requirements change, you can go back and regenerate prompts because you've specified them in a higher level way than just the prompt itself. Yeah, so I think I have only a generic answer. I don't have a really deep good answer for this. We all interact with different services in order to get what we want done. And today, many of the services are online. They're on an app, their website, and so on. But these are not necessarily the ways that an agent will interact with the rest of the universe. And so we will have APIs, we'll have interfaces that are easier for agents to interact with. And when that happens, we will see more and more of our work being done by an agent talking to another agent rather than by an individual talking to another individual or by the agent talking to another individual. For example, when we look at how buying a train ticket evolved. Buying a train ticket involved going to the station, going to the ticket counter there, figuring out which train was available, then figuring out the seats were available on that date, and then buying the tickets and then getting the tickets back. Right? And then when that moved online, then you have a service where basically it sells exposes a set of fields and says, hey, put in these fields and I'll tell you what happens. Right? And then another version of that is an API where a machine calls that API. Human doesn't call an API, right? Human is using the web page or the app. Now there's an API for booking tickets. Right? And so the API is something that a human will not use, but a machine will use. So as we evolve, the agents will learn how to use APIs, and that's one of the things that's happening. And now for the agents to use the API, it's easier if there's something in the middle called a MCP, a model context protocol, which allows the model to have context to do certain actions. And that's provided by the person giving the API. Right? Because the API was being given as a deterministic thing, it's not necessarily fully explained there and so on. But with the model context protocol, an AI can explore what to do, what this particular API call will do, how it will do it, what all needs to be supplied, and so on. And figure out for itself how to book that ticket through that potentially model context protocol interface that the ticket site will provide. Right? So this is the evolution that is happening already. And definitely that's going to create a lot of ways for us to save time as individuals because a lot of our work can get done by these agents through MCPs or other APIs. Yeah. So alignment is what this problem is called, right? What you want the AI to do versus what the AI does. And so this is called alignment. And if we are dealing with an ASI, then it's called super alignment. And this is a very, very hard problem. And many companies are already tackling this problem. And you can see this at multiple levels. One could be at a cultural or social level. Let's say that I have an AI that's trained on North American cultural values. Will an Indian customer, or will a customer from Saudi Arabia, or will a customer from South Africa, will they want to use an AI which is encoded with North American cultural values or not? So it could be at the level of cultural values. It could also be at the level of a particular data. Right? So let's say that I want to, in my organization, I want to prioritize customers' needs higher than my internal priorities. So for me, when the AI is talking to a customer, I will err on the side of the customer. Right? But a different organization may say that, we have to balance between customers and the internal needs. So that's a different alignment that is required. Now, when you come to individuals, it could be at the level of me asking for things which are illegal or which are things that are harmful to me. And right? So in that case, is it aligned with what I'm asking? Because I'm asking for that thing, so it will give me what I want. Or is it aligned with some kind of laws or societal value, which says, individuals should not be given access to this. So all of these are different kinds of alignment problems that exist. Right? And on top of this, there is, stuff where the AI cheats or the AI says it has done some work where it's actually not done that work. So all of those kind of challenges are there as well. And so for all of these things, number one, multiple companies are working on these things at different levels. Number two, the LLM providers, the cutting edge labs, they are figuring out how to create alignment where the AI is actually not lying, it's telling the truth. But at the same time, if you ask it something which it should not answer, it will make sure that it doesn't answer that way as well. Right? So all of these kind of types of alignment are things that people are working on, and a lot of that work is required because potentially AI can help you do a lot of harmful things, and alignment helps to make sure that those harmful things don't happen. Having said that, going too much into that and building too many guardrails might also stifle the creativity of the AI. And the creativity of the AI is stifled, then it may no longer provide as high a value as you want. So where do you draw the line between not stifling the creativity of the AI and not doing harmful things? That is not an easy trade-off to make. And all the labs are struggling with that. All the labs are figuring that out. I'm sure sharing some lessons as well. And yeah, that's where the alignment problem is something that has to be solved as AI gets smarter and smarter. Regulation is complicated in this situation because what exactly do you regulate? You're not going to regulate electricity. So it's at a very base level, you don't want to regulate things. Right? You want to regulate applications of things. But those applications are themselves moving very fast. So what can be done, what cannot be done, that's changing super fast. So I think we need regulations which will help us move into places where things can be seen more clearly in terms of what happens, to track what is happening. And then when we see evidences of harm, how can we go in and make sure that that doesn't spiral out of control? In some ways, if you think about it, social media has been extremely more powerful. Right? Social media has been extremely powerful, and it has been both a force of good in getting people together to do things. For example, there's this kid who did this ocean cleanup project, right? And he got a lot of support from the internet to go and build actually, boats and machinery that will help clean up the oceans and rivers and things like that. Would he have been able to do it at that scale as a kid without social media? I don't think so. But it's super inspiring, and social media enabled that. But at the same time, social media has been implicated in large scale violence in Myanmar and Sudan and so many riots in so many places, allowing hate to go beyond any kind of imagination and leading to real lives being lost. So, but is social media regulated on that? On that, it is not regulated, right? It's regulated on hate speech, it's regulated on people saying the wrong thing, it's regulated on spreading the wrong things, so on. They have an obligation to fix that. What is that equivalent for AI? We don't know yet. People are figuring stuff out. And I'm hoping that more of that work will happen sooner than later. But at the same time, we should again not build too many blockers in the path of AI. Because let's say that the same creativity that causes some of these problems will help somebody get a doctor's diagnosis in a rural area where access to a doctor is far away. How do you balance those two out throughout? And it's not an easy balance, and it is changing very fast. So regulations, when things change very fast, become tricky because they may target the wrong things. So 100% that's going to happen, right? Because if you just think about it, I mean, you use a phone, right? So you want to have some intelligence, some computing power, some data at your fingertips all the time. So definitely you want some of the intelligence that an LLM or AI model, Gen AI model can provide at your fingertips, right? Now, whether that's on your laptop or your desktop or your phone, it needs to be seen, but definitely that's going to happen. Especially where latency critical things are happening, like voice transcription, maybe something based on a conversation, so on. The local stuff is 100% going to pick up. One of the local things that I've really picked up in the voice transcription space is where people are now dictating to their computers rather than typing things out. And here, the latency and the understanding of what's going on in your computer will give context that is very powerful for the transcription engine to perform better. Now, the same thing is in some other API in the cloud. I would not be too comfortable giving screenshots from my desktop or, which files are open and things like that to the remote computer, remote API, even though it might help improve my performance, right? So, but in contrast, a local LLM, which is accessing my screen, my other open documents and things like that, I might be okay with as long as it's not sending information back. Right? So definitely local LLMs are picking up. God only knows, right? I think we don't know because the capabilities of these models are changing so fast. That what can be done locally, what cannot be done locally, what do you want to learn done remotely. For example, I might shoot a task off when I'm leaving home, and I want the task to be done when I reach office. Right? So obviously that should run remotely and not on my phone or my laptop. Are there things which are very very latency limited versus are there things which are throughput limited? I think applications are going to come across all of these things. So each of these things is going to grow, and already obviously the 120 billion new model from OpenAI does much better than any of the previous closed models that were posted. But does that extend to a video model? Yeah. What if I want to generate video? Does that extend to other models which do a lot of tool calling? Is that better done on the web? I don't know the answers to these questions, and that will determine which will work. But at least for the next few years, 3, 5 years, everything is going to get better. I think the game is moving too fast for any predictions. My perspective on this is, if you are a domain expert, if you have deep expertise in a particular domain, start playing with AI, start looking at the problems in your space that are high value, that could not be solved before, that can now be solved with AI. Look at how you can granularly break up those problems and then see how you will actually implement it in AI, and which parts will have to be done by AI, which parts will have to be done by software, which parts will actually still continue to be done by humans. And that breaking that up and doing that is something that a domain expert can do. It cannot be done by an outside. And I think this is going to happen in every domain. Now, when will it happen in a particular domain? Anybody can guess, give some guesses, but I don't think those guesses are going to be right. And I'll give you an example of why. Normally, people say that BFSI, banking, financial services, insurance, are the early adopters of technology. And in AI as well, they are the ones who are spending a lot of money and trying stuff out. But over the last 3 months, 6 months, I've been hearing a lot more of healthcare AI being something that's picking up a lot. And it's very surprising, right? Because normally healthcare is not a super fast adopter. But why is this? When I started looking at it a little more deeply, I understood that in healthcare, or in contrast, in BFSI, a lot of the data is already digitized. And a lot of the data is in the form of numbers. And these numbers are already digital. And LLMs are not good at adding numbers or multiplying numbers or doing things with numbers in general. They will have to write some code for it. And banks already have tech to do a lot of the things that they do. So when they look for buying stuff, they need stuff that is very precise. If I have 100 rupees in my account and I add 10 rupees, better say 110. It shouldn't say 112, it cannot say 109. So that precision is what they're looking for from AI. And Gen AI doesn't provide that precision today. On the other hand, in the medical space, all the data is still very, very fragmented. All the data is in the form of, almost all the data is in the form of text and not numbers. Whether it's you're talking about symptoms or diagnosis or reports, things like that. A lot of that stuff is in the form of text. And in the medical field, trying to do a diagnosis is still nowhere near the mathematical form it is in the BFSI side of things, right? So in healthcare, it's all fuzzy. Many times your diagnosis may be wrong. Many times nobody will be able to diagnose. So there, the LLMs are actually able to do a much better job, not necessarily better than doctors, getting there. But let's say you have a X-ray that's taken in the middle of the night and there's no radiologist available. The AI might be able to do a 80% job, but that 80% job done in 5 minutes is incredibly valuable. That is not true in BFSI. So somehow healthcare folks are pushing much harder on this, and they are seeing outcomes that they're getting, which are better than what they can get otherwise. You're in a rural area, you have these reports, or you have to do a diagnosis. Doctor is not there. What are you going to do? An LLM and an AI might give you better output than not having any output. So that's how these folks are leapfrogging. Now, will the same kind of a thing happen in a manufacturing? Will it happen in other sectors? We don't know. Yeah, so I think depending on the domain, it is extremely domain specific. So depending on the domain, different things will happen. We have a company which can completely transform the supply chain of a manufacturing unit. So normally a manufacturing unit might have a team of 5, 10, 20 or even 30 people who are working on the supply chain side of things, because they have to procure a large number of different types of parts. What our startup is doing, and they're called VFab, what they're doing is they are building an AI layer with software and AI, which will take the requirements in the form of drawings and work with suppliers and crunch this whole supply chain into something that can deliver much faster results, much better results, much more promptly, figuring out what are the problems, figuring out what are the risks in the supply chain, providing solutions that can mitigate it. So instead of employing 30 people, they can employ 5 people and they can get things done much, much faster. So, but this will require people to reimagine how they do their supply chain and procurement in the industrial automation side of things, manufacturing. But there are huge benefits to be reaped in terms of doing this, because if they're able to get to market faster, then they can be more profitable, they can be more competitive, they can get more market share, which will help them overall as a business. And so once somebody does this, then their competitor will have no choice but to do it. And so whoever does it earlier will have a more stronger advantage of doing this kind of a transformation. And this kind of thing is going to happen in every function across every industry. It's a matter of time. So it will take 1 year, 3 years, 5 years. We don't know yet. But our bet is that startups are the ones who will help a lot of enterprises make it happen.